What turned out to be an electric Sunday at the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black, with quite the comeback by the United States, falling short, ends up in a loss for the U.S. 15-13, exactly like I predicted on Thursday afternoon. Shouts to me. We're going to talk through it all. Come vent in the comments with us. Team USA, a lot of questionable decisions from their captain, a lot of not making any putts for hours upon hours on end. Shane Lowry delivering the burying blow after Russell Henley missed another putt that would have helped the United States, and much more coming up here on Big Drive Energy. All right, let's tee it up. Big Drive Energy. The Ryder Cup is over. And I got to say, I don't feel that bad about it. Like, I was crashing out Friday and Saturday, and today made it a lot better. But I also just was more, I think my biggest takeaway from this, we'll jump right into the big takeaways, we'll follow our strict prompts here. I think my biggest takeaway was just clearly the European team was better, and they showed that, but they just dominated. They did everything they needed to do. The score looked a lot closer than it really was, obviously, which doesn't make it feel any better if you're a United States fan. If you're a European fan, you don't care because you won, and it doesn't matter. When you win, you win. But I will say, they just did they responded every single time you did anything good, and every time you had a chance to win a hole making a putt or really flip momentum, they just never did it. And it was kind of lackluster performance all the way up until today, where it was a lot more fun. But you can't win the Ryder Cup on Friday and Saturday, but you can sure lose it. And I think the United States basically did that. And as much as I love the dude in general, I think a lot of it falls on Keegan Bradley and some of the pairings that were made, and even parlaying that back into some of the captain's picks that were made a couple weeks ago and filling out this team.
Yeah, so I don't fully disagree with the direction you're heading in, but I just want to zag and say that this Sunday could possibly be the worst possible thing for America for their long-term Ryder Cup success, because they made it seem much closer than it was. It was truly never within reach. And I do think that if the Americans were within arm's length, even, that the Europeans would have completely ended that. And today would have gone differently, in my opinion. So, but in my mind,
Sunday was a facade. Yes, what you're saying.
It was window dressing. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, it was over, it had been over, and it is over. I don't know if those three things make sense together. But it was, it is, and it has been. And they're the team has just not been good. I mean, there's so many different places we could go. Like Keegan picking, wait, was this
Colin Morikawa was fucking terrible. Let's just put
Colin
it that
Morikawa,
way.
Yeah, Morikawa was garbage. Was Harris English a captain's pick, or did he qualify?
No, he qualified.
Okay,
He's somehow the 10th best player in the world. Some guy today. Did you see that tweet today that I responded to?
Yes.
Somebody goes, "Oh, the envelope thing. Imagine saying the 10th best player in the world needs to be in the envelope." I'm like, you went watching? You been watching Thursday, Friday, Saturday, buddy? Tell me you haven't watched a fucking second of the Ryder Cup. Maybe Russell it's Harris English's uncle or something.
Russell Henley, the third best player in the world. That is blasphemy. It is in that. If we don't need further repair from this whole live golf thing, especially in the US, then I don't really know. We really needed this big slap in the face, but today kind of eased that slap in the face off of us. And I don't think we needed that. We needed to get hit hard right in the face. I am personally just super pissed off that I didn't bet Europe plus 180. It was plus 170, plus 180. Should have put, hindsight's 2020, put $1,000 on him. It just felt like the right thing to do right off the bat, because this American team, as much as we tried to bring any sort of juice, and we'll get into some guys. I do eventually want to grade everybody. I think it's just fair that we give them all an A, B, C, D, F, F minus type of grade for both teams, because that'll, kind of lay out how we felt about everybody. But I just was so disappointed overarching. Obviously, it's goes without saying that I have never been as disappointed in the American team, just showing zero gumption, just zero will. Yes, Sawyer could have played for Morikawa. Like, Morikawa was an absolute joke. And the worst part for me is every worst thought that American fans had in their minds beforehand came true. Like, oh, Russell Henley might be bad. He was bad. Harris English has no juice. He's a wet paper towel. He was a wet paper towel. Colin Morikawa hasn't played much golf. He's bad. He was bad. Like, there. And then you look at the European team and you're like, John Rahm could be really good. He was fantastic. Tyrrell Hatton could be really good. He was amazing. Tommy
Fleetwood doesn't lose until singles day.
Like, oh, Scotty Scheffler doesn't play well in team formats. He didn't play well in team formats. It just couldn't. Every storyline that the Europeans had came true, and every possible like positive things that the American team had, it went in the opposite direction. Like, it could have not gone more incorrectly for these guys than it went. And then you get into the Keegan Bradley discourse of Jeff, I would have never doubted betting on the European team, because I just knew in my heart of hearts today was fun. It was a fun watch. I feel like today was being like a Chicago Bears fan. Like, they don't have a chance of winning, but you just want it to be fun, and occasionally they make it competitive. But the U.S. Ryder Cup team should not be the equivalent of the Chicago Bears. They should be the New England Patriots. They should be, I'm not even going to say the other team that's won a lot of Super Bowls recently, but they should be a dominant force when you look globally at what we have. I have a lot of words, but I also have no words, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it makes sense. And I feel like your point about the facade is so true, because hopefully it doesn't. I hope the loss, just as a loss, shakes up the entire United States plan going into 2027 in Ireland at the next Ryder Cup. But they at least made the Ryder Cup fun to watch. I think is the biggest key out of all of this. But I think overall it was a beatdown, and it was just like when I made the graphic this morning, bloodbath at Bethpage, fire graphic of Shane Lowry. Shout out to that photographer in New York that took that unbelievable job with Rory jumping in the background, and the picture ended up still working. Bloodbath didn't really work, but I didn't want to change the graphic, but I changed the whole title of our show to "The Comeback Falls Short" as Team USA or Team Europe gets buried by Shane Lowry, etc., instead of bloodbath, because it ended up not being a bloodbath. But like you just said regarding Jeff's comment, is I never felt like we were actually going to win it today. As close as it got, there was maybe a smidge of a point where I was like, oh my God, this is going to be fun. And it ended up being fun. And Bryson flipping that match on its head, where I honestly, early on, like, we thought this was over in general, whatever. But when Bryson 3-putted, did you watch? Or you were kind of in and out. But Bryson 3-putted. Bryson hit it closer on, I believe, 4 or 5, par 3. Then he hit it closer.
I did see that.
And then 3-whacked to lose the hole when you thought he was going to win the hole. And that right there was the moment where immediately for me, I was like, oh boy, this is over. And granted, they fought, and they did fight. And, JT, unbelievable job from JT all week, really. I mean, he got carried by Cam Young a little bit. That kind of ignited his fire, and he came back and played better. But honestly, and I was saying this in a group chat with some guys talking about the Ryder Cup in general. They said, JT's emotion felt a little forced, and I was like, it had to be. The U.S. had to manufacture emotion all week because they couldn't make a big, like, yes, it's great to hit a great shot. Like, golf is just such an interesting sport, especially as a spectator and as a team format. Like, you can hit this insanely good drive just 30 yards past your team or your opponent, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's cool in that moment. You're like, yeah, that's sick. But it doesn't matter unless you then hit it to a foot where it's a tap in, or you hit it to 20 feet. That doesn't even matter. But you make that putt, and that's the big momentum shift, the big cheers, the actual finality of a hole. And then the U.S. never had a finality moment. I mean, there was a few here and there. Yes, they made some putts. Like, they didn't miss everything. It felt like it, but they didn't really miss everything. But just in general of like just not making a putt that got the crowd going. They're trying to get them pumped up. And really, a lot of the times, what was funny is the United States obviously trying to manufacture emotion as players, but a lot of the times they wanted to have emotion. You could tell that they wanted to be emotional about what was happening, but they were getting their ass kicked so bad, either in that individual match, like, yeah, I just won to go down 3 with 4 to play. Like, what do you can't cheer about that. Like, if you get hyped up about that, you're an L7 weenie. So there really just was no ability for them to just to make raw emotion from the United States crowd and get them into it. And we said they needed that 13th man the whole week, and they never allowed them to have the 13th man, really.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the U.S. roster, Bryson was far and away the most emotional, kind of the guy that was going to get everyone pumped up. Justin Thomas has a bit of that, but a lot of the guys like Scotty, for as good as he is, he's not that guy. He's just not. Even look at Rory. Rory's not necessarily that dude either. He is a little more than Scotty, but he's not Shane Lowry. He's not John Rahm. He doesn't have that big personality. And I mean, Bryson just got thwarted the entire week. He got no chance to be able to do any of the shit that he wanted to do. Like, he wanted to celebrate. He wanted to get into it. And there was nothing there for him to do. And he was bad with the putter. I mean,
Williams to Adunze, by the way, just to make you a little bit happier.
I did like that. Yes. Thank you. That was helpful. I got the quad box going right now. I don't know why I can't speak for some reason. By the way, in our pick 6, did we have San Francisco?
We did. Unfortunately,
-3.5.
Yep. That was one of Sawyer's locks. So
Sawyer picked our entire pick.
That was electric. 3-0 in the morning slate.
It was. I mean, he did better than we would have done, knowing all the ball that we know. So I can't question it. But Bryson was really the spark plug, was supposed to be the spark plug for the Americans, and he had nothing. You could arguably say that he's always great off the tee, but his iron game is just not that good. And he doesn't hit that many irons, so it's not as big of an issue for him because he generally has a lot of wedges into a lot of holes, but his iron game was just not that solid. He wasn't hitting that many shots close, and just didn't really make any big putts. I mean, there's really not much more to say. And I just want to give credit to so many guys on the European team. I think it goes without saying that Tommy Fleetwood was fantastic, but like Justin Rose was phenomenal. The European team just took a fire blanket, and whatever type of fire the U.S. team tried to light throughout the day, they just threw the blanket right on top of them. They never let them get any sort of momentum. It was, and that was ultimately, like we talked about on Thursday, the U.S. had to get out to some sort of lead to gain any momentum. They never got the momentum, and the European team just never let us build any momentum. It was honestly one of the best displays of golf from the European team that I've seen in a while. And you kind of wonder how much of that is the momentum of them starting so well, and how much of that is the American team just not being able to really put anything together. And realistically, this is another question. Who do you think is supposed to be the leader on the American team? Because it really feels like there's no set leader on that team. And that is kind of the biggest problem in my mind. There's no locker room guy. There's no guy that's going to get everyone, because Bryson could be that guy, but he's too corny. I don't think guys like it. And ultimately the American team, they're just not friends. Like, the picture of Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood was circulating all over Twitter, talking to, all of these guys are buddies. Rory's buddies with Shane, Tommy, Justin. All these guys are friends. And have you ever seen a picture of any U.S. player with another U.S. player, like, hanging out outside of golf, like when they're not working? Because they just don't have that camaraderie. There's not like any foxhole guy that you have that when you're down 2-0, that's going to pull you up out of that. Like, the US golf in general is very every man for themselves, and it serves them well on the PGA Tour and in majors and all of this shit. But when it comes down to this team format, they are up shit's creek. Like, they can't lean on each other because they ultimately do not like each other that much. And that is just the culture of US golf. That,
Yeah,
I know,
well,
I'm just spitballing into different rabbit holes here, but that is there's micro issues and then there's macro issues. And one of the big macro issues is that the US team, they're not boys. There's no culture around American golf. And that is, it's a tale as old as time, but it continues to ring true here.
yeah. Well, I think ironically, to kind of answer your question, the ironic part about the Ryder Cup is the fact that he was the captain. But if Keegan had played in this and been the captain / playing, but more of a golfer, obviously he would have had to focus more on the play on the golf course of his own versus worrying about the matchups and the who's he's going to put out where and who's going to play with who. But Keegan would have been that perfect locker room guy as a team member that would have rallied the troops and been the rah-rah guy. Not that you necessarily need that in golf, but you know what I mean? Like, that's Keegan's job. And as the captain, maybe he did that, but to the extent of him actually going out there and holding putts. And I was having this conversation too, same kind of group chat, where I was okay with Keegan not picking himself until we can even remove his terrible pairing of Harris English and Colin Morikawa back-to-back days. Like, we could talk about that in a little bit. Remove that from it. He's one of the 12 best golfers the U.S. has to offer right now, and full stop there. And that's what I think actually hurt them, was some of their play on the golf course wasn't as good because he wasn't one of the 12 players. And that's just facts, like that is honestly just facts. And honestly, the guy that would have brought the most emotion to the crowd as a player would have probably made some huge putts, or would have been always, even if he didn't have his best stuff, which apparently a lot of the United States team did, he would have been the guy that helped grind it out. And I want to get to this real quick at some point. We'll just touch on it now, Brendan's comment, because this is actually pretty interesting. And not that it matters, but Hovland forfeiting the match needs to be a point for the U.S. That rule needs to change. If it happens in any other sport, the other team gets the win. And I thought about this a lot today, actually, as this started to get closer. I'm actually glad that I forget what match was it, the Hatton, like one of the last matches after it was all over, but they still finished playing. I think the Hatton match where they halved it, Hatton and Burns maybe or something, but they have the match so that
Hatton was playing Morikawa.
Or Hatton Morikawa. So it was Burns and somebody else, but they actually have the match at the end so that the European team won by a full, 15-13, a full 2 points, instead of, it theoretically could have gone to a tie and been 14-14 at that point, which would have been insane. But the fact that ended with a full point difference made me feel a lot better about what happened with the whole Hovland situation, because theoretically, I said this morning, the European team could have just bailed and had stomach bug for 8 matches and won the Ryder Cup that way. So that is a little silly that it gets halved. I mean, it obviously sucked on our end being that we needed just about every point that we had to get going into today to win the Ryder Cup. But when they only needed 2 points, to win the Ryder Cup going into today. So 2 full wins. And then it turns into a have and a win. And then, Ludwig won, and it's like, oh, all we need is a have here versus an actual win outright. So that I honestly, that part was, it could have been way worse. Honestly, if this finished at tied, it could have been way worse, having that whole envelope rule and the fact that Harris English didn't get to play. Harris English may have gotten drummed by Viktor Hovland, even with a bad back or whatever he was dealing with.
Viktor Hovland could have been in a neck brace and probably drummed Harris
a
English
neck brace, exactly, 100%.
Fucking
but
right
the
here.
feeling of that with the U.S. losing by a point or half a point or whatever they would have lost by if that last match wouldn't have been halved, would have been a lot more of a talking point, which I don't think it's fair to, because like we said from the jump, the U.S. got dominated this whole time, so it wasn't as close as the score actually said. But if this would have been a one point overall Ryder Cup, that would have been kind of the leading story, or one of the leading stories, and I don't think it deserves to be, but it's worth mentioning for sure.
Yeah, I would agree it's worth mentioning, but ultimately, like you said, it didn't matter. Viktor Hovland probably would have drummed Harris English anyways, so I feel pretty good. So we each got half a point. So whatever, like at the end of the day, obviously, if it was closer, I would have had a problem with it, but I don't want any moral victories here. I don't want to bring up the Viktor Hovland. It's the Chris Paul meme when Chris Paul makes a 3 to get it down by 42. Like, talking about that just takes away from the fact of how bad the American team played the first 2 days, and the fact that there was nobody to right the ship. The crowd was a problem, which we'll get into, but there was just so much shit that went wrong for the American team that it is a very interesting rule that they went in that direction and did not give, like, I guess that you don't know these rules until you find them out. And I think a lot of Americans are like, holy shit, we had no idea. Because I had no clue either, but it did not matter. It shouldn't even be a talking point. Everyone.
Well, and at that point that it was actually announced and Victor actually dropped out, it was a win for the United States to get a half a point in a match. It felt like, like that's what's insane about it.
When we started the morning sessions today, when we started singles, Tommy Fleetwood had more individual points than the entire American team. That is all you need to know about how this Ryder Cup went. You can question everything into the moon, but ultimately we didn't have the guys that could step up when they needed to. And the European team did. Like, it's not that hard to, I don't want to make it so black and white, because obviously we're on a podcast. We got to hash through everything, but the European team just has that dog in them, and the American team does not. We've been saying it for a while. I feel like historically, yes, exactly. Greg is 100% correct with no dog in the American team. Colin Morikawa might be one of the softest golfers. I hope he enjoyed wearing the red, white, and blue this weekend, because I hope it's the last time. Unless he wins multiple times in the next 2 years, I hope this is the last time he wears.
It's hard for him to win multiple times when he doesn't play multiple events.
Yeah, he's like, well, I played 2 events and I finished top 10 in 1. But with these world ranking points, he'll probably still be in the top 10 for the next 2 years based on what he's at right now. So it really does not matter. But there's just so many spots, and there was a few positives for the American team that we haven't even gotten to yet. But when it's just absolutely muted by any sort of play that could have helped the Americans and just didn't get there, it's a mute point. Like, Cameron Young should feel fantastic about how he played. Cam Young could be a future dog on this team. I hope he's around for years. Getting that first PGA Tour win, I think, put him into the place he is now, and he will continue to go up from there. Even JJ Spawn, Like JJ Spawn was great. He nutted up when he needed to nut up. And those were the two dudes on the American team that I felt like had any sort of juice. And maybe it's just because they were so fresh. And even Ben Griffin, I mean, I put Ben Griffin out in front of Colin Morikawa yesterday afternoon, yesterday morning. I'm sorry. Put him out like at that point when so much is going wrong for the American team. Why are we just staying status quo? Like Keegan Bradley felt like he panicked a little bit, felt like he didn't think he was going to be in this position. He didn't even consider that we were going to be getting drummed the way that we were, and had really no backup plan. Like, where do I go to if our team is absolute dog shit? And he didn't plan on it, and they had no recourse. Like, they just continue to get shit on.
Yeah, well, what's ironic about it is he did say that they had a plan and they stuck to their plan instead of deviating away from your plan. But when you get punched in your mouth, your plan has to change a little bit because clearly it's not working. And we might as well just get into the pairings and the repairing of Harris English, Colin Morikawa, because the one thing that's key about this is I thought about this in the moment, right? Before it even happened, when we saw the pairings come out for Saturday, and it was basically the exact same group. They flipped Cam Young for one other guy and put him with JT for the foursomes on Saturday morning, excuse me. And you can always go back now on a Sunday night when we lost the Ryder Cup, when the United States lost, and say, oh, that was a bad pairing. They lost. But it was, everybody knew the second that got posted that was a bad idea and that was not in the best interest of the team. And we knew what was going to happen. The team that got drummed the worst on Friday, and you put them out in the exact same format against a stacked European team on Saturday, and you knew what was going to happen. So it's easy to say now, but it's not like everybody with rooting interest in the United States saw that pairing Friday night going into Saturday and thought, what are we doing here? This is exactly like you're throwing the exact same thing back together, hoping that they can somehow find it. And I don't know if Keegan, their plan, there's not a lot that we know about it. Obviously, I don't know if he cared about feelings, if feelings are what made, part of it, like we shouldn't play, or we know Colin Morikawa is so good, and we know he's been good in the past and he's been on Ryder Cups. Like, we should just stick with him, even though he had one bad round, or Harris English auto qualified. So we got to play him again, etc. But like Ben Griffin getting left out, you wonder if it's like some feelings of Morikawa and Harris English where they're like, they're vets. We'll put them back out there again, instead of just blowing the whole plan up and being like, all right, we got killed in foursomes on Friday morning. Let's do something completely different on Saturday morning. Because once again, this is hindsight. We're talking after the fact, but everyone backing the United States team would have celebrated a completely different lineup of 8 dudes on Saturday morning based on what was out there Friday morning after how it looked on the golf course. That's just a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, sticking with what you thought was the plan, like you said, you get punched in the mouth, you change your plan. And that has to be, that is the mark of a great coach, is being fluid and making adjustments as they need to be made. You don't just stick with, if you're getting dominated in this spot, you have to move into a different spot. And I did see things about, basically Morikawa and English were sent out there to concede a match and try to win the other 3 points. In what world do you have 12 of the best Americans and they have 12 of the best Europeans, and you send a match out there with no consideration that they could even win that match? Why are you being sent out there then? That is, you're the sacrificial lamb at that point. It is a momentum killer for your entire team. And I mean, we saw Colin Morikawa out there like trying to pump up the crowd on 18. I'm like, you should not see the golf course again this week. Flat out, the emotion with the U.S. is so manufactured. They truly, the Ryder Cup doesn't mean the same to the Americans that it means to the Europeans. Ian Poulter has widely said that his biggest accomplishment of his career is winning Ryder Cups. He's been asked, if I could win a major or a Ryder Cup, which would I choose? And it's always a Ryder Cup because that is how much it means to these guys.
Did you hear Shane Lowry's interview afterwards?
Yeah.
He literally said it means more to make this putt to win the Ryder Cup in America than it did winning an Open Championship in his home country.
Yeah,
that's different.
He's representing his country like that. It means something different. Golf is just, I go back to it, but golf is so individualized in America, and it's so my team, this, my trainer, my caddy, my wife, my psychologist. Everyone's got a team, but no player relies on other players. No, they have buddies out there, but even their buddies aren't really buddies. Like they don't, it's all very work. It's all very, what would you call it? Surface level relationships. And none of these guys are actually boys. Like, could you think of a more opposite Harris English from Georgia and Colin Morikawa from California? In what world are they ever going to have any sort of, relationship or find any similarities, find any common ground? Pair Russell Henley and fucking Harris English together. Pair like-minded guy, like pair guys that are pair JJ Spawn with Colin Morikawa. And I know it sounds dumb, but when you can't relate to a guy and you come from different sides of the world, you would like to think that representing America would galvanize them to the point where they don't care who their teammate is and they're going to fight for each other like a foxhole guy, like they're in a war, which, it's not a war, but that is how the Europeans treat it. And the Americans treat it like it's hee-haw with the fuck around gang. Like they're like, oh yeah, well, and it started with the suits with no tie. It started with the tennis shoes, the casual look. Like they meant no business. The Americans came out and meant no business whatsoever. The Europeans stood on business, and that was kind of the end of it. It felt over before it started. And like you said, I do want to credit the Europeans because they played phenomenal golf, but the Americans just fucking didn't really push back hard enough to even flip it in their favor. The weight was always down on the Americans, and weight was, I don't know how you want to compare it, but the momentum was always in Europe's favor, and America did nothing to flip that. And I do want to talk about course setup as well, because that is a question that has been talked about. 75% of the team putted worse than they normally do. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no real other fucking recourse. They have to putt well. And honestly, America didn't play the back nine on Thursday or on Wednesday or Thursday. Why? Like that is pompous to me. That shouldn't have happened. The Americans should be playing 18 holes every single day while they're out there, getting full lay of the land, getting the greens down, all of that shit. They were like, oh, we'll just play the front nine. We'll just play the front nine. I honestly think that hurt them. When I was there on Wednesday, the Europeans played all 18 holes. The U.S. only played 9. And I don't know if that's any sort of storyline to look into, but it is definitely a question that needs to be asked by the American team.
I wanted to get, do we want to get to this comment real quick? Cause I think we kind of touched on it with some of the 4 balls that he put back out. The players didn't perform, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. And I think, that kind of goes into Scott's point here as well, when he said, I see why Keeks tried to stay with his gut choice. If you make adjustments when you beat yourself, it could backfire worse. But my argument to that point, I don't think it could have gotten any worse than what happened on Friday morning. Like, yes, theoretically it could have been a sweep, but just the overall vibe of the entire Ryder Cup from the United States aspect was completely off after that Friday morning and getting beat 3-1 and being down already and not feeling like you had anything good there. or was it 3.5 to a half? Was it? I can't even remember now. It feels like, or I think it was maybe 3-1 after the first round Friday. But yeah, it was just like it almost felt over already. And then you go back and you're like, oh, we're just going to stick with that plan. And you just don't, like you run the ball on 3rd and 2 once and you get stuffed. Do you run the ball on 3rd and 2 again? Or do you play action? Do you pass? Like what,
But, and I like that comparison, but it was 3rd and 7 and they ran it and they got stuffed. And then they ran it on 3rd and 7 again and got stuffed like that. If it's 3rd and 2, then yes, run it again, because your plan will eventually work. Statistically speaking, the odds are in your favor to then gain an advantage. But when you're down by that many and you decide to stick with your game plan, that's where people start to question where your mind is at, whether you have full control of this team or not, because to stick with your game plan, quote unquote, when we looked so bad. Yes, the U.S. doesn't practice team golf. It's just a flat, like they don't even know who none of them really have any friends out there. Like, and that's like you see Scotty and Sam Burns, they're buddies. Did they get paired together once? No, they didn't. Why was that? Because Scotty and go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing. Why was that? It makes no sense.
Yeah, no.
But you put Scotty and Russell Henley together twice.
Yeah, I mean, because they won one Ryder Cup match or one President's Cup match one time, and they're like, oh, Russell and Scotty are good together. For fuck's sake. Put guys with, like, Ben Griffin. He's a fucking total nerd. He's a square. Put him with Bryson DeChambeau, because Ben Griffin is the only guy that will hype up Bryson. Even though Ben isn't nearly as corny, he will go up to the level of Bryson. He's the kind of guy that can get there. I know they're not boys. They're coworkers, but they're competing with each other. And that's where Europe has the sort of camaraderie where they hang out off of the golf course. These guys grew up together, and the American golf culture is so cutthroat that you can't be buddies with anyone. And I mean, that's more old school, that is like the dream team, like all these old school basketball players, all these old school football players, they don't want to be buddies with their opponents, which I totally understand.
Hey, you lost your mic, brother. Let's get to, if you want to keep ranting, you can, but I do want to get to this.
Can you hear me now?
You're good now. I do want to get to the course scenario, because you saw the golf course. Obviously, Greg's played the golf course, and I don't know who sets it. Is it the United States team that sets that up? How does that work?
Yeah, the United States and the PGA basically get to kind of choose the setup of the golf course.
And this is another comment from Greg. He would have set up, Keegan Bradley said he would have set up the course differently. Harder the course, better for the USA.
I mean, I would agree with that, because we have the reigning U.S. Open champion. We have the last 2 reigning U.S. Open champions. We've got guys that are capable of, and that is the epitome of American golf, is even America thinks, oh, the easier we make the golf course, the more of a pitch and putt we can turn it into, the more it will be in our advantage. And that's just flat out obviously not the case, because if you turn it into a putting match, Europe's got the guys and we do not have those guys. And even take it a step further into the course setup was 100% a fail, but the American golf culture is living on a launch monitor. All of these guys live on launch monitors, especially from a young age now. These kids grow up being on a launch monitor. They're not out on the course playing golf week in and week out, day in, day out. That is what the Europeans do every day. I've heard interviews with Padraig Harrington say, I wouldn't hit a single ball. I would go play 36 holes every day that I could. I would walk out on the course and just play golf. And that is the difference between this American team and this European team, is when it comes to actually getting the ball in the hole. That is the beauty of golf, is you can tee to green, look much worse than another player, your opponent, and still beat them. And that is kind of the golf that I live in. And that's the golf I've had to live in, because I just don't hit it near as far as a lot of guys, so I have to lean on that. But there's so many American guys that hit it so much better that they just feel like they can rest on their ball striking. And I don't know if the greens seemed slow to me, and the greens seemed like they were not near as easy for the U.S. team to read. And that makes me think they should have played more practice rounds. Like, why aren't you out there earlier? Why aren't you playing more? Why don't you know the greens more? And it was just an overall complete fail on the Americans' part. Like, I don't want to give any sort of fucking window dressing to. The broadcast was saying that the course was set up in Europe's favor too. So it'd come down to a putting competition. Honestly, if you look at the statistics, who are the guys on the American team that you think are better putters than Europe? Scotty is clearly not, for as elite as he is. The Achilles heel of his game is his putting. Bryson DeChambeau, not known as a great putter. Russell Henley, good putter, just average, above average ball striking. I'm not trying to disparage his game, but so many other factors that he can get beat in. He's a great putter. Harris English, decent putter. JJ Spawn, pretty good putter. But there is like 7 or 8 guys on the European team that I would take in a putting competition over. In, it just goes back to the original point of they're just better, but there's a good 7 to 8 dudes on that European team that I think are better putters than the Americans. And if you're going to turn into a putting contest, then Europe is going to dominate. And that's exactly what we saw, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. And it was also just when you look at the stats of tee to green, that both teams were basically even in strokes gained. And then the last time I saw it, it was at one point, the United States was 12 shots worse than the European team on the putting greens. And then today at some point, I think I saw it at 9.5 shots worse, but no matter how you slice it for how close it ended up being, if you could go back and cherry pick like 4 to 5 putts that the United States, you said, hey, they have to make this, and they make this is a lot closer going into Sunday. And then you never know what's going to happen on Sunday, but it's a lot less of a beatdown going into Sunday, where you need a miracle to win versus like, hey, we need to win more matches than they do, but we need to win 9 out of 11 or whatever it ended up being, 10 out of 11 basically in a half or two. Like that's what it ended up being.
Oh, 100%, dude. I mean, it could not have gone more crooked. Yeah, they should have set it up like the US Open. That let the cream rise to the top. You can live with a team playing better golf, but when the rough, like there's no rough out there. How are you completely neutering Bethpage Black, turning it into a glorified pitch and putt? Why even have it at Bethpage then? Host it at fucking Top Golf. Let's just see who can hit the target more often. Like, it is the most asinine thing I've seen. And there's a lot of soul searching that has to go on for the American team. I don't even know. They need to squash this live bullshit, because I want to see Phil Mickelson be the next captain in Europe. I want somebody with some jam, and not to say that Keegan doesn't have jam, because Keegan has it, but ultimately the PGA of America screwed the entire team by appointing Keegan this, because he said right off the bat, and I stuck by this, I knew he wasn't going to play if he didn't qualify, because he said he wasn't going to, and he wasn't going to go back on his word and pick himself after what he went through 2 years ago. So he was put in a position he didn't want to be in. He wanted to be playing. He ends up being a captain, and he ultimately could have been that guy that made a huge difference. And he was on the sidelines trying to cheer these guys on, watching them shit down their leg the entire time, like watching them miss eight. And tell me that Russell Henley missing an 8-footer and leaving it short wasn't a culmination of just the entire week for the Americans. Like, you have an 8-foot putt to continue the Ryder Cup. It's downhill, and you somehow leave it 6 inches short right in the heart. Like, that made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. Well, and we can go and hash this out. And I think we'll obviously do a little bit more recap on our next podcast and talk a little bit more about this as everything finally comes out and we hear more from Keegan, more from Luke, etc. But not to unfairly put this on any one person, because you could put it on Keegan, you could look at pretty much any United States player. But when we previewed this and looked at the teams and even looked at the matchups that we had and the pairings that were going out Friday when we did our pod Thursday, Scotty Scheffler going 0-4 is just not something you can have. He is by far and away, now golf, very individualized
He
sport.
won his
We've
last
talked about it.
match.
Well, no, 0-4 starting the tournament,
first 2 days.
essentially. Yeah, the
Yes.
first 2 days. And he is far and away right now the best player in the world, has been for multiple years, completely dominant. You're putting him in conversations with Tiger Woods. And I'm not putting it on him. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh yeah, it's Scotty's fault, because there's a lot of other guys that could have helped him out, a lot of other guys that could have won their own matches and made this a completely different story going into today. But when he was the guy that US needed. It was like the foregone conclusion that, oh, Scotty's going to play well and everybody else needs to pick their game up. You didn't even think about on Thursday or Friday when we were talking about this, Scotty playing as bad as he did. Now, there's some stats that came out where I believe the teams he played against birdied 32 of 66 holes or something in the European teams against Scotty. So sometimes people just get beat, but he wasn't Scotty that we've seen just put a stranglehold on a Masters or put a stranglehold on another major or the any tournament that he's won. Like, he just puts a stranglehold on it when he wasn't that guy. And you just didn't anticipate that. I anticipated the US losing. I really did. I anticipated a lot of things going in the Europe's favor with how deep their team was. And basically, sorry to call him out, but Rasmus Højgaard was the only guy that looked out of place there. Every other guy was like, oh, a dog. You're scared of that guy playing golf against. And your best player, you're a top, your number one guy by a mile, did not really show up and play that well this week. And that killed the US.
100%. I mean, if you don't have your best guys playing well, then how do you expect? You got to lead from the front. There's, especially with a team that has the lack of leadership that unfortunately that the US team had. Your best guys, if they're not going to lead verbally and lead in the clubhouse, then they have to lead on the golf course. And they just did not do that. And then it was just a chain reaction. And how often Scotty Scheffler yesterday, coming down to 18, had a chance. I forget what it was. They had to win to push the hole or some shit. And he dumps a 115-yard wedge in the bunker short right. Like, when is the last time we've seen Scotty Scheffler do that? There was definitely nerves with him, and it set in by, I think, partially some of the outside pressure, because there is 100% an individual. You can be very good at golf individually and not be good at team golf. That is just the way the game works. And once again, Americans are not built to be good in team golf. They're not built to rely on anybody, and that serves them very well in a lot of other places. But during the Ryder Cup, it does not serve Scotty well when he is with a teammate and he gets no juice from them, and it almost takes away from his game. And then it's the trickle-down effect of everyone else is playing like shit. Everyone is really leaning on you. Instead of just having your own expectations, you have the entire fucking country's expectations. Obviously, the U.S. team, but all of U.S. is on your back. Like, you're supposed to be carrying this. And I don't know if Scotty, it is the difference between Scotty and Tiger. And even Tiger wasn't that great in the Ryder Cup. Let's just put that out there. I mean, I'm not talking shit about Tiger, but there's certain guys that just don't play team golf that well. And that is where I think you have to have a guy like Scotty Scheffler step up and say, I want to play with this guy. I think I do well with this guy. I don't know, like you said, we don't know what went on behind closed doors, what conversations were had, but it just felt like there were so many guys out of place within their groups. And hindsight's obviously 2020 once again, but then you look at the European team and there's so many groups that felt like matched up perfectly for them. And the US just does not have those options. Like, there's just not that many different guys that you feel like play well with the other guys. So it's there's just so many things that we can touch on. Do you want to touch on the fans a little bit? Because we haven't even gotten into that yet. Where do you stand with Rory, with Shane Lowry, and it was really just mostly Rory, I would say, that was having a problem with the American fans versus everyone else. But Shane Lowry obviously took exception, being his buddy. But I don't think there was that many crazy things said to anyone else. I think it was really Rory that's got quote unquote picked on by the American crowd, and it just paints Americans in a bad light. It's the 1% of people that go out there and act like absolute clowns, say just really questionable shit, and then everyone just assumes Americans are the worst people in the world. So give me your thoughts on that, because I want to see how you felt. I was kind of indifferent to it. You know, these things get rowdy, but there's definitely a line.
I think it was unfortunate that it got to a point in the Ryder Cup where the United States team was literally quieting the crowd as the European team was putting to try to have a little bit of class, if you will. And Shane Lowry even said, I think they asked him about the 2027 Ryder Cup, and he said it'll be a lot more enjoyable than playing here. That's for sure. And which, you know, it's fine. There's definitely a line, and I do think that the United States fans crossed it a little bit. You know, you don't know obviously exactly what was said, and there's got to be some good banter going on and that kind of stuff. But touchdown Rams, we got Rams -3.5.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with the crowd in general. Like I said, I don't know exactly what was said, but the fact that the one of the greatest golf shots I've ever seen hit was Rory stepping off, telling the crowd to shut the fuck up, and then hitting one to a foot. As much as that hurt my United States heart, that was incredible. And then, yeah, the Teletubby comment was so fair and so funny. Agreed, Scott. That was elite from whoever said that about Shane Lowry. But overall, the whole the cringe cheering, setting up the cheer section, and then them apologizing, not a big fan of it in general.
Well, wasn't there somebody that also like set up a chant that was like "fuck you, Rory"? I
That
think
was that's the thing. That was the lady or somebody who, I don't know if it was a lady, maybe it was just some person that was on the first hole that was doing the, like, trying to do the, you know, the manufactured cheers with the United States fans, and it was a "fuck you, Rory," I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's wild. Like that. And realistically, that's pretty mild. That's, you know, low hanging fruit. You think you could come up with something better than that. But then I saw a drink was thrown at Rory's wife. I don't know. There's just a lot of questionable shit that went on. What do you think of now? I mean, there's a few other discourses that have taken place on social media. Do you think that the American team should be allowed to bring in Mexican players and Canadian players? Because that is what we've reached to at this point. That was the discourse on social media last night after all that shit went down. I mean, it's not as crazy as it sounds, but it's also just grasping at straws. Like, it's pretty wild.
That's just a funny thought. That's a great thought. No, we shouldn't be able to.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't see this stat that in, like, I think the late 70s, early 80s, the European Ryder Cup team was only Great Britain and Ireland. And then in order to make the Ryder Cup more competitive, they added the rest of Europe. So there's not it is sad that it's come to that point for the Americans, that they're like, oh, we need Canadians, we need Europe, or we need we need players from Mexico. I was going to say Hispanics. I don't fucking know why dude, fuck off.
It's not wrong. Like, it's just funny that it comes out that way.
Like, is Carlos Ortiz changing this? Is Abram Answer going to fucking flip
Joaquin
this in
Newman?
Joaquin's from Brazil, dude. That's South America.
Cam Young's number one.
I want
He's
Chris
a
Goddard
captain's
up at the
pick.
next Ryder Cup. I want Chris Goddard up. He is a foxhole. He's in New Jersey, fucking dirty.
Sick, dirty pig.
Yeah. Well, that's Shane Lowry. But no, fucking Goddard up is a grimy fucking will get in your face. I want Goddard up in the next Ryder Cup. I want Andrew Novak at the next Ryder Cup. I've been on the Andrew Novak train for a bit. I bet he was sitting on his couch today, not feeling terribly about how this went. Obviously, if you're left off of the team, you're not rooting against them, but you don't want to see them flourish without you. And even Michael Kim. I mean, Michael Kim just won the French Open. He's a dude that could possibly down the road be a guy that if he gets back into form, the American team could use. So there's quite a few different guys. I mean, who knows? By the time the next Ryder Cup comes around, there could be a college kid that Jackson Coyven or I don't know, name any other Gordon Sargent from Vanderbilt. There's a handful of kids that could be really good coming out. And it's like, if they earn their way on, I am just all about the young dudes at this point. America, Keegan Bradley should be the only quote unquote old guy on the American team. The veteran presence in the locker room. He should be that only dude. I think Gordon Sargent is the name.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I think he said that before you said that. That was in the comments.
Okay.
I just didn't show it fast enough.
Okay,
Neil Shipley must start in the next Ryder Cup. Guys like
Neil
that.
Shipley, he's gonna have a PGA Tour card. There's certain guys that are built for the shit, and there's certain guys that are not. And you'll take one look at him, and you can tell, oh, they're gonna be good in the Ryder Cup. Also, would love to see Brooks be on the next team. Like Brooksy is a guy that it feels like the U.S. team has no swagger. They're a bunch of pencil pushing nerds. Brooksy brings in a little bit of that swag. You need to have some sort of like, oh yeah, fuck you, I'm really good at golf, and I'll prove it to you right now. Even Scotty Scheffler being the best player in the world does not have that. Bryson DeChambeau is like, oh, well, let's check out the dew point today. And I don't know if I soaked all my balls in fucking Epsom salt to see if they're all floating correctly. I don't know. So this kind of segues me into the Bryson, Tommy Fleetwood kerfuffle, the little dust up. What did you think of that?
I thought it was pretty, like, Rose played it off pretty just like, hey, am I putting or are you putting? And if I'm putting, then stand the fuck back. Like, I wanted to hate the European team. I was trying to manufacture some anger towards them, and they just kept giving me reasons to be like, well, there's it was that JJ Watt quote. I think we made a shirt out of it at All City, but it was like, maybe we're just fucking better. And that was how I felt about the team Europe the whole time. That's just how I felt. Maybe we're just fucking better. You are, and you won.
There was really no element of hate involved, at least for me. I mean, Rory was a little soft, stepping off and for 2+ minutes at a time. At least that's how it felt. But the crowd actually, I think, played into Europe's favor because those guys get galvanized off of that shit. It's like being the away team. What do we always say when we go to an away football game? There's nothing more fun than being, and we're only fans, we're not even playing, but quieting a crowd is almost more electric than making a crowd roar. Being the away team and being able to put your foot on somebody's throat like that and give them zero air is way more fun than winning when you're supposed to win. And that is an element to this whole thing as well, is there was such expectation on the American team that it was a no-win. Like, if you win this U.S. Ryder Cup, you're supposed to do that. But if you lose, you're going to be a laughing stock. Like, the last 5 Ryder Cups have been won by the home fucking team. If you lose, you're going to look like jackasses, and that's what they look like. Like, I don't know. And Europe had nothing to lose. Rory said it 2 years ago after they won at Marco Simone. They were like, we're going to go into Bethpage Black and win that Ryder Cup, and that's exactly what they did. There's just I don't know. I wish I had a little more gonads when it came to betting, because Wyndham Clark at the next Ryder Cup. I'm a hard pass there. He's not the right kind of attitude that we need at the Ryder Cup. I don't need to see him throw a fit and stick his wedge in a green. I don't think that's going to give us any momentum, but there's a lot of questions to be asked. There's many more questions than answers at this point, and we unfortunately have the next 2 years to think about it. I think a lot of American fans are going to think that the sting was very much relieved by this Sunday of making it competitive, but it still feels just the same to me, even if not worse, because if we would have played this way the first 3 days, we never would have been in, or the first 2 days, we never would have been in this position. So it almost hurts that much worse that we actually found a way to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps when it was too late. Like, what's the point? Just fucking concede, get boat raced. Just go 12 Victor Hovland's out there, for fuck's sake. Also, by the way, Victor Hovland was hitting range balls yesterday. I know he's dealt with injury, and I don't want to question another man's integrity, but that felt slightly questionable to me. And he was playing good golf. That is the most questionable thing, is like, if you're playing good, then you're going to volunteer to sit out. Obviously, he doesn't want to individually hurt himself, but at least give it a go, dude. Like, golf is unfortunately a soft sport, and there's guys who are just like, oh, I got a tweak in my neck. I slept wrong this morning, so I'm just going to sit out today. That is pretty wild. That caught me off guard.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit this one out, like the United States seemingly did Friday and Saturday, and then decided to come and play today. Is there anything else you wanted to get to? You want to wrap this bad boy up?
Yeah, I don't think I really have anything else. I think we covered pretty much all of it. Was there any other kerfuffles? Was there any other noteworthy? No. Oh, so let's give just a quick, I don't want to go through and grade everyone, but top 2 non-surprising, or like, I guess, off the beaten path, good players for each team. Who were you surprised by that played as well as they did, I guess?
Cam Young's an easy one for Team USA for me. And the European team, surprising is not the right word to put it, but Jon Rahm being as deadly as he was, it made sense compared to the Jon Rahm that was number 1 in the world right before Scottie Scheffler took that crown. But where he was in his game, and the fact that he's on the LIV Tour and you don't see as much of him, you don't know where his game's at any point, him being as dominant as he was. Like, if he was just good, it would have been like, okay, that's Jon Rahm. But he was number 1 in the world, turned back the clock 2 to 3 years, Jon Rahm. So those are my two guys. Who are you guys?
My guy was JJ Spawn on the American team. I just kind of had a feeling about him. I thought he was going to play well. I thought he was going to step up to the moment, and he did. And I really think he played awesome. And then on the European team, like Jon Rahm stuck out, not that surprising. But Justin Rose is just so good, man. He is the veteran that the Americans, he is our Keegan Bradley that we did not have on the team. He's been there. He's done that. He's been on tour for 20 plus years. Him and Luke Donald are like the same fucking age. It's like, when you have a player that's as old as the coach, that's your veteran. That's your guy. And Justin Rose was the veteran leader that they had that we did not have, and it ultimately hurt us. But I think he rattled off 4 straight birdies to start yesterday. It was just right off the jump, just suffocating the American team. And was there any, like, they had so much momentum with the putter that I felt like every 7, 8, 9, 10 footer they stood over, it was going in. And it did. I don't know if I watched them miss. I think maybe Tyrrell Hatton missed like a 6-footer this afternoon to push a hole that I was shocked by. But other than that, like, they made almost every single putt they needed to make, and we missed virtually every single putt we needed to make. And that is the pretty much the difference between these two teams at this point. So,
yep, them's the rules. That's how it goes. United States loses 15-13 to Europe in the Ryder Cup. We appreciate you guys all tuning in to Big Drive Energy. Follow us on all the socials at Big Drive Energy Golf on Instagram, Big Drive Energy on TikTok and Twitter. We'll possibly have a show this week, depending upon how we're feeling. Maybe recap it all next week. I'm getting out and playing some golf next weekend. I'm excited playing the Sandbagger little Ryder Cup action between 24 of us at Plum Creek and Red Hawk. So I'm going to go fire a few low ones. I'm feeling actually pretty good about my game. Hit driver as good as I've ever hit it for an 18-hole round on Thursday. So feeling really good about that. Make sure you tune in for our next episode of Big Drive Energy. We'll always be live on the YouTube. And yeah, that's about it. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. Go Bronx. Monday night football game tomorrow night. Looking forward to that. You got that nice 8:15 Eastern time start, so enjoy that. But I will be there, and I will be probably enjoying myself and enjoying the game. We appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Sunday night, everyone. And we'll talk to you next time on Big Drive Energy. Peace.